Go ahead and so first of all, I'd just like to welcome everyone to our official first meeting with the Downtown Advisory Committee. On behalf of all the staff in the Community Development Department, we're really excited to kick off this process to prepare a downtown specific plan to get to know all of you better and to work together and moving forward on this project over the next couple of years. I'm going to ask some of you to please look down and make sure that you're muted. We do have a presentation, so if you got dogs or other stuff happening in the background, it'll make it easier for everyone to hear the presentation. So thank you for that. And thank you for leaving your camera on. It's nice to be able to see everyone. So I am going to actually share my screen. We have a presentation for you tonight. We will have opportunities for questions and discussion. But let me go ahead and formally get this queued up on the first slide, and then we can get going. And I think you all should be able to see the screen very well. I'm getting some nods. Okay, great. Let me just adjust my camera so nothing is in the way of me speaking. Okay, so good evening, DDAC members. As I mentioned, it's nice to see all of you here on our first meeting. And just as a reminder to all of you, my name is Lisa Porras. I'm a planning manager for the Advanced Planning Division here at the City of San Carlos and project manager for the Downtown Specific Plan project. There are a number of key staff that are available here tonight and that will be working with me on this project. And when we get to introductions, I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. I'm going to be walking us through tonight's agenda. So as an official Brown Act committee, and we'll hear more about what that means in just a moment, we have certain protocols that we must follow, and I'll be the one to kind of guide us through those tonight. So our first step is to officially kick off the meeting or start the meeting, which we will do now. And then the next thing that we do for all of our meetings is we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So you're welcome to mute yourself and say it out loud at home, or you can just join in with me right now to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll go ahead and get it started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is to take attendance. We will need to keep track of who's here and who's not. So I'm going to go ahead and call your name out, each person's name. And after I call your name, if you could just remember to unmute yourself and just say here. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Allie Board. Allie Board?
Here.
Thank you. Donna Lira?
Here.
Allison Chang?
Here.
Tom Davids? I know I saw Tom earlier. Tom Davids? Maybe you're on mute. I think Tom is still on. I'll come back to that. Anthony Cam? Is Anthony Cam here? Jean Denner?
Here. I see Anthony. I think Anthony just didn't unmute. Here.
Okay, yeah, just remember to unmute so we can hear you. Thank you, Jean.
Sorry, I'm here. I apologize. I got kicked out for a reason.
Okay, great. That's Anthony. Mark Maxwell?
Here.
Thank you. Amy Buckmaster?
Here.
And Amy, just for the record, we did get your email about the adjustment to the representing category. So we have that, we will, going forward, we will have that changed to Chamber San Mateo County. I just wanted to let you know that we did get that. Madison Blanton?
Here.
Thank you. Samina Ginwala?
Here.
Maya Neighbor?
Here.
Sri Chandrasekhar?
Here.
Thank you. Elisa Espinosa?
Here.
Monette Meredith?
Here.
Joaquin Pedrin,
Here.
James Bertram. I think James is absent this evening. Make a note of that. Cecile Lee.
Here.
Thank you. Tracy Massaro
Here.
and Elizabeth Min. Is Elizabeth? Oh, Elizabeth Min might have been the second one that wasn't.
Yes, she's out of the country.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, so just two. This is really great. Thank you all for being here. So the next item on the agenda include our meeting objectives. We want to make sure that, since this is our first meeting, we do our welcome and introductions, and we want to provide some basic information about city staff contact. We also want to talk about the Brown Act and public records request. There will be an orientation given to you this evening by our city attorney, Greg Rubens. We'll also talk about DTAC roles and responsibilities, including your city email accounts, communications, the meeting schedule and format, and introduce our project website and resource library to you all. We'll talk about the project itself. What are the goals of the specific plan, the timeline, and we will also be giving you a brief introduction on specific plan. We're not going to get too deep into it, but we're definitely going to set a foundation for that this evening. We also want to talk about civic engagement. So not only do we have the DTAC meetings as part of the civic engagement, it's really multi-pronged. Talk a little bit about the other things that we're going to be doing to engage the community, including some surveys and other meetings as well. And then finally, we want to provide you with and invite you to a meet and greet. You all will be working together over the next couple of years, discussing the city's downtown and kind of diving into a lot of information and providing, guidance to the city, your input. So we think it would be really nice to kind of have a meet and greet social event. We're thinking about an ice cream social. So before we end the meeting this evening, we want to talk about some opportunities to do all of that with you and kind of make it a light event, not a heavy work meeting. Maybe the only heavy thing will be eating ice cream. That's our idea. So we'll talk about that to wrap that up for tonight's meeting. And then also what I wanted to say is that for each item that we go through, I definitely want to pause and hear if there's any questions from the DTAC. So I'm going to ask Sarah and Lynette to help me see your raised hand. If you know how to do that on Zoom, feel free to go ahead and use the raised hand feature. If you're not familiar with that, you can just raise your hand in front of the screen and kind of wave it, and we'll be looking for, your actual hand, your real hand waving to kind of to call on you. And if you have any questions as we move through the items on this agenda. So moving forward, there's a lot of us here this evening, and I wanted to give us an opportunity to sort of hear from each other before we really start diving into the material. Some of you may have met each other during the grouped interviews, but not all of those interviews were grouped. So we're going to have just a brief opportunity to kind of do some welcome and introductions. So to begin with, I would like to introduce the city staff team. And I'm wondering if I need to do a stop share, or if maybe you all can sort of enlarge your screen. You might be able to scroll through and see staff waving. Can you all see me? I hope. I'm sort of kind of like waving, introducing myself. So that's what I thought we would do for city staff and the consultant team. So your city staff and consultants include myself, Lisa Porras again, and joining me in this endeavor is Al Savay, our Community and Economic Development Director. Al, if you can just sort of, I think most folks know you probably, but if you're there on the screen, you can just sort of wave and so folks can see you.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Al. Also on city staff side is Lynette Kwok, and I think most of you are at least familiar with Lynette because she did a very important step for this evening, which is to give you all your Zoom links so you can join this meeting. Lynette will be assisting me with a lot of communications, information, materials throughout the life of this project. So Lynette will be someone that you will want to remember her name. There's other staff here joining me this evening. Sarah Cadona. Sarah Cadona is our assistant planner with Good City Company, but assisting the city. We also have Sajudi Hawk is here tonight. And our city attorney, Greg Rubens, who you will all meet in just a moment. And we have other staff that you will meet throughout as this project unfolds. We have staff from our economic development and housing division and from other departments and divisions throughout the city. So they will be joining us at key moments where it's pertinent for them to kind of share their expertise and have a discussion with the DTAC. So you'll be meeting more folks, but this is your core team here on the city side. For the consultant side, I'd like to have Jamie Williams introduce herself. Jamie?
Hi, everybody. Looking forward to kicking this off with you.
Yes, Jamie's leading the charge on the consultant side. And so now what I thought we could do is move on to the DTAC. For the DTAC, what I'd like to do, just kind of similar to roll call, is to call your name. And for example, I would start with Allie Board. And if you can introduce yourself and just share, like for example, like for Allie, you're representing the downtown businesses. If you can just share which business you operate, that would be great to help the rest of the DTAC learn a little bit about you. And also whether you've served on any city boards or commissions in the past, that would be kind of good information to share. And if none of these apply, you can also share where you live or where you work, you know, what neighborhood you might live or work in the city. So we have 19 members on the DTAC. And as I mentioned before, it's really important for us to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves, but we do want to be mindful of time. So if I can ask you just to kind of keep it brief, we'll pick up on the meet and greet during our ice cream social that we're planning for next month. So if we can go ahead and start with Allie, if you want to unmute yourself and share a little bit about you.
Absolutely. I am, as it was just said, a business owner in San Carlos. I own Joey Ray Boutique on Laurel. So I'll have kind of an interesting take, a little bit different than what we've kind of experienced as a whole from the restaurants downtown. Like I have a little bit of a retail insight and knowledge. We've been in business on Laurel for, almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in the December, 10 years in February. And I am born and raised in kind of the general San Carlos area. I went to St. Charles, Notre Dame, Belmont, and then I currently live walking distance to downtown. So I definitely utilize downtown all the time. I am always on Laurel, and I'm really excited to be a part of this group and contribute and all of that throughout the months and however long ahead.
Thank you, Allie. Welcome.
Of course. Thanks.
Next is Donna Lira.
Good evening. I am a downtown business operator for the DTAC team and appreciate being here with opportunities ahead to be team member. I own a business on the 700 block where all the parklets are. I actually operate as a marriage and family therapist in an office. And I live just a block off of Laurel Street and Cherry and Walnut area. It's a piece of property my family's had since the 50s. And I was born and raised locally just over in Redwood City. And I have been here in this house since 1990 for some time. So I've been around the area, seen a lot of development and looking forward to contribute hopefully to more here that can only help our neighbors, ourselves, our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Welcome.
Thank you.
Allison Chang.
Yes, hi, I'm Allison Chang. I'm one of your downtown property owners. I'm actually a residential property owner. So my partner and our 11-year-old have lived in a condo on downtown Laurel since 2009. We are very much a pedestrian family, especially since the pandemic when we all started working from home. and schooling from home. My daughter went to Burton Acres, just finished up at Arroyo and is going to Central. Really interested in keeping the wonderful family friendly, like all ages inclusive vibe that we have going. And I want her to be safe to walk to, Diddums and Boba after school. So it's a perspective I'll be bringing. But again, been here since 2009 and plan to probably retire here, just so that I'm thinking about, yes, the average homeowner who can't afford to move away but wants all the amenities of city life while keeping a small town feel. Thanks.
Thank you, Allison. Welcome. Tom Davids. And Tom, I know you're here somewhere. Where's Tom?
Got it.
Oh, there you are. Great.
Okay, you all set?
Thank you.
Well, it's good to meet you all. I'm Tom Davids. I've been in San Carlos about 50 years. My wife and I moved from Colorado in the 1960s. Got 4 children. We got 9 grandsons. And so the family's been growing and prospering here in San Carlos. My initial job was with not Samtrans, but was with the Eureka Federal Savings when they built the building at the corner of San Carlos and Laurel. That served the savings and loan business for quite a while until the property became a surplus. The company went broke like many of them did in those days. And I continued on as a manager of that property. And then subsequently I worked for Caltrans, and was it at that area of activity. So I've been working with the city many years. I moved here and not having to do anything about commuting. I can walk to work. I lived on Carmelita for 40 years. And about 7 years ago, we moved to on Walnut Street. And we have a condo there, and it's very comfortable for my wife and myself. So I served on the city council for 12 years, starting in early 1990s, and served as mayor for 3 years. So I've been active in many aspects related to the city. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome. Glad you get to work with us some more.
Right.
And next we'll go to Anthony Camp.
Hi, Anthony Cam. I'm on the EDAC, Economic Development Advisory Commission. I've been on that for a couple months and enjoying it. I have a family. We live up off of on Bower, above Alameda, and been there for about a year and really love San Carlos. And I'm really happy being involved in everything I can in San Carlos. I'm a principal at a commercial real estate firm, and I've been working in the area since 2008 now. So I've done a lot of business on the commercial side, and yeah, just looking forward to this. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony, and welcome to you as well. Let's go to Jean Denner. Jean Denner.
What else do I need to, I'm here. What
Oh.
else do I need to do?
Oh, sorry about that, Jean. We're just giving everybody a brief opportunity to introduce themselves, maybe state whether you've worked on the city commission before, or anything that you might want to share, what neighborhood you live or maybe work in or used to work in. Just something brief. It can be very brief.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Jean Daner, and I came to work in San Carlos in 1971. And so I've been involved in one way or another, first with the school district, of course, and then raising our family here. Our children went to school in San Carlos. My husband was very involved in Parks and Rec Commission and that sort of thing. And once I retired, I got involved in the History Museum. I thoroughly enjoy being involved in San Carlos events. As you can tell, I'm a retired school administrator. And I'm thoroughly enjoying retirement, and I'm looking forward to being involved in this advisory committee.
Thank you, Jean, and welcome. Let's go to Mark Maxwell.
Hi there. Mark Maxwell, lifelong resident of San Mateo County. I grew up just a little bit south of here in Menlo Park. I was born and raised there. Briefly went to college back east, and once I got my degree, I promptly moved back to the peninsula. And my wife and I have lived here in San Carlos for the last 15 years. It'll be 15 years in a month. In July, we moved the summer before our oldest son started kindergarten, and he will now be a junior in college in the fall. I've participated on the Parks and Rec Commission for the last 6 years, I believe. And I've also done a variety of, I've been involved in a variety of different youth activities ranging from youth sports to Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, the other end of the spectrum. Super excited to participate in this, as a lifelong local resident, but who didn't grow up in San Carlos. I discovered and fell in love with San Carlos as an adult, but it's been fascinating as I run into, friends, colleagues, people that I've known either my entire life or that I've worked with just the last few years. When they find out that I live in San Carlos, the response is always, I love San Carlos. I love that downtown. So, I want to try to balance the goals and needs of all of us, keeping it lovely for ourselves, yet also continuing to make it a viable destination and a thriving economic center for visitors that may be coming from other parts of the peninsula and beyond.
Thank you, Mark. Nice to meet you and welcome. We'll move to Amy Buckmaster.
Good evening. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I'm really excited. I am pretty much, I guess you could say I'm a lifelong San Carlos resident. I moved to Redwood City in 2011, but came to Redwood City in '69 with my parents and went to White Oaks, Trinity Presbyterian, Tiny Tots, Central School, Notre Dame, and then actually went to college in Notre Dame myself. And I think Mrs. Jean Daner, I think you were one of my teachers, if I remember, back at Central. So I think this is just a great opportunity. I hate to say it, I'm probably one of the other older historians here. So I do remember what San Carlos was like in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and 2000 plus. And this is just going to be such a great opportunity for all of us to really see what we can do and what it will come out of it. It's just, I'm thrilled to be a part of this and look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you so much, Amy, and welcome. Madison Blanton.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Madison, and I have been working in the social services field, particularly with people with disabilities, for over 20 years. My organization, One Step Beyond, serves adults with disabilities all throughout San Mateo County. We've been doing so since 2016, and one of our main offices is located in San Carlos, right off of Old County Road and San Carlos Avenue East. So the northeast corner, we've got two little buildings there, and the individuals that we work with go in and around the downtown area on a very frequent basis. So I'm excited to be a part of this committee to ensure that people with disabilities voices are heard and that we're all thinking of inclusivity for people with special needs, and that they are also represented in this plan. So thank you.
Thanks, Madison, and welcome. Next, we'll go to Samina Ginwala. Samina?
Hi, I'm Samina. I've been living in San Carlos since I was, I think, like just a little kid, so quite a while. I'm on the Youth Advisory Council. This is going to be my 4th year, along with Maya, and I go to Carmont, and I'm a junior.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Samina and Maya, for being part of the DTAC. It was really important for us that we included members of the youth, and to get your perspectives, I think it's just awesome. So thanks for taking the time and being here. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's turn to Maya.
Hi everyone. I apologize for my voice. I'm losing it. I'm losing it because I'm working with kids all summer and all I do is just yell at them all day. So I'm Maya. I'm part of the Youth Advisory Council with Samina. This is actually going to be my 5th year. I've lived in San Carlos since I was about 3 years old. So I've been going to school here, Arundel, TL, Calmont, and I'm going into my senior year at Calmont. I guess like San Carlos government wise, I've been involved in city council youth liaison and then also Parks and Rec, which is basically we just go and attend the meetings. So I think Samina and I are just pretty good, like in a good loop of what's going on in the city. And I think we're really thankful for the opportunity to be able to represent our youth at a council like this. So thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Let's go to Srichan Chandrasekaran. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Let me know.
No, that's right. I just go by Shri. I know it's a long name, but
Shri? We can call you Shri.
yeah, just Shri.
All right.
Yeah, recent San Carlos resident. We bought a house just before the pandemic in Devonshire Boulevard. We have a dog, so we get to know a lot of the neighbors. I think that's the best way to know neighbors. What else? I haven't actually worked with any government council. This is my first one. I did do some advisory with City of New York for self-driving cars. I work for Waymo as an engineer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sri, and welcome. Let's move to Elisa Espinosa.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Elisa Espinosa. This is my first city advisory group that I'm joining, so really excited to be part of this group. I am a renter and live on Walnut and Olive, so very close to downtown. And I've lived in San Carlos for 2 years, but I've been in the peninsula for about 8 years at this point. I work at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative in Redwood City, so take advantage of walking to Caltrain and all of the downtown amenities that we have to offer. And so really excited to meet everybody and to participate in this advisory committee. So thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, next we'll move to Monette Meredith.
Hi, I'm Monette, and I've lived in San Carlos since 1972. Did you get my picture? Do I have to do that?
Oh, we can see you and hear you.
Oh, okay. I've lived here since 1972. My husband was one of those rare breeds that was born and raised here. We raised our family here. My children went all through school here. And I worked for the school district for 30 years as a school librarian. The last 20 years, I was at Central Middle School. And I currently work part-time at the Reading Bug on Laurel Street.
Wonderful. Thank you, Monette, and welcome. Joaquin Pedrin.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for this opportunity. Yeah, let's see. I grew up in San Francisco in the Haight-Ashbury. Spent a few years in the military. Spent some time at Pearl Harbor as a landscape architect and planner. I now work at Caltrans as a landscape architect. Let's see, we've been in San Carlos since 2007. We live up on Sunset Drive up above Alameda. Our kids, I got one kid at Mariposa, he's 10, and I got a junior who's going to be a senior at Carlmont. And I am super, super impressed with Samina and Maya because my son is not doing anything cool like this right now. He's playing water polo, which is not very cool. Well, actually, it's pretty cool. Let's see what else. I served on the RDRC, the Residential Design Review Committee, from 2014 to 2017. Under the guidance of Lisa and her awesome staff, and that was a really exciting time in my life, Lisa. That was some interesting meetings, and yeah, really excited to be on this. And when I was at Pearl Harbor, we did something like a specific plan for the entire installation. And so this process is near and dear to my heart. And I'm just so impressed with how San Carlos does this, and everything that Al and Lisa are doing in terms of planning. It's so progressive and forward looking and just really doing a great job with it. So excited to be on the team. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Joaquin, and welcome. Nice to be able to work with you again. Let's go to, so James is not here tonight. Let's go to Cecile Lee.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Cecile Lee. Our family moved from San Francisco to San Carlos 22 years ago. Raised our kids here. They went to Heather School, Notre Dame, and then back again to San Francisco at St. Ignatius. They are now 28 and 25. For all the 22 years that I have lived here, I am proud to say that I've been active in the community. I currently serve my second term on the Parks, Rec, and Commission and Culture Commission. When my kids were in school, I was active as a PTA officer, a fundraiser leader, also run the Art in Action in several of the cultural events. I spent 17 years in banking and investments as a professional prior to joining my husband's family business in San Francisco. We love San Carlos, we love the downtown, we love the people, we love the parks. Just I can't help to continue to make contributions. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Cecile. Welcome. So last but not least, we have Tracy Massaro.
Hello, I'm Tracy Massaro. I've been in San Carlos for 10 years. I have 3 little kids who go to elementary school, White Oaks and Arroyo. And this is my first time serving on any sort of board. So total newbie without any experience, but look forward to learning from you all and being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Welcome. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. And again, just really wanted to get everyone, have everyone get a sense of who is here and who's on the committee, and again, just to kind of get to know each other a little bit better. And then we'll definitely provide an opportunity for you guys to meet in person. So now let's get down to business, I should say. We are going to be having an orientation on the Brown Act and public records requests. So I know a lot of you have met with and signed some required documents with Crystal Moy, our city clerk. So thank you for doing that. And I know that you'll be getting your city emails in the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But as part of the orientation, or kind of just the general first steps that any new committee or commissioner needs to do, is to get oriented on the Brown Act and public records request. So I hope you are comfortable, have some water, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our city attorney, Greg Rubens. Welcome, Greg.
Coming back here. Hello, everyone.
Just let me know when you want me to advance the slide.
Okay, I'm Greg Rubens. I've been the city attorney in San Carlos for almost 14 years now. It's hard to believe. Before that, I was the deputy for about 15 years. So I've been helping the city for a long time. Go ahead and change the slide. So the city attorney overview of the city attorney positions. I report to the city council. The city is my client. So my job is to guide the city and its officials to conducting themselves in a manner that's in compliance with the law. Next slide. Some of the main laws. So I attend meetings. I'm not sure if I'm going to be attending meetings on a regular basis, but I may be requested to attend. I work with you as members of the committee if you have any questions about the Brown Act, or on the first, I'll get into this a little later about FPPC regulations. I do code enforcement and all those things listed there. Spending a lot of time on it. So the Brown Act, go back to the Brown Act. The next one, I guess you could skip the public contracting law. So the Brown Act is California's public meetings law. That is why it's basically the concept of the Brown Act is the people's business needs to be conducted in open and not in the proverbial smoke-filled rooms of 100 years ago. The act was passed in the 1950s in its first form, and it's been modified since. Interesting, because of COVID-19, there's some modifications to Brown Act rules that apply to all the bodies in San Carlos that allow us to conduct the meeting in this way as a remote meeting. There's a balancing in the Brown Act because there are exceptions to public things that have to happen in public. Real estate negotiations, litigation, labor negotiations. Those are the three big areas where we can have a closed session. This body will not have any closed sessions, but it's good to know that is why we have closed sessions like those. Some of you are in business. It's kind of similar to an executive session of your board of directors. They go in private and talk about things that are necessarily for public consumption. There's a presumption of public access, and so that's kind of goes on the other side of the reasons for the confidential closed sessions. So in other words, the city has to justify the closed session and properly notice it for that closed session. Meetings, for regular meetings, it's 72 hours notice, 24 hours for a special meeting. For your group, there's not a big distinction between the two, but I think our meetings will be noticed at least 72 hours in advance. And then the final one I think is important for this group. We can only discuss items on the posted agenda. So things that come up naturally in your usual conversations where people segue into different subject matters. If it's not on your agenda, you can't talk about it. You can't make a decision or make a recommendation in the case talk when it's not on your agenda. Maybe the next slide for me. Public Records Act. So Lisa talked about having, issuing you a city email address, and there's a reason for that. We want you, for the purposes of this committee, only use that email to receive and send items. I forgot on the Brown. Can you go back to the Brown Act, because I forgot an important part, because that's just an overview. The last items only, you can only discuss items on a posted agenda. Be careful not to talk with your fellow committee members about items that are on an upcoming agenda or something that you know is going to be considered, because you could inadvertently create a meeting that there's something called a serial meeting or a meeting via email or other technological devices. You want to avoid that. And so my simple solution for a group this side is never reply all in the emails that you receive from the city. So no matter what Lisa or some other staff member sends to you, only respond to the staff member, don't do a reply all, even though the initial email may have gone to everyone. That's an informational email, and I don't want to have an accidental discussions start to occur in the replied emails. And my hypothetical is if you all get an email and the staff it just informs you on your agenda is going to be the discussion of this item, and then several of you reply to all and say, I think that's a great idea, and what about this, and how can you and then to Commission Member so and so, what do you think of that? That could potentially devolve into a meeting if 10 of you get involved in a discussion like that, because a meeting is a majority of the body. So just be careful of email. If you create and social media sometimes can create a meeting, and if you're careful about if you communicate in chat rooms or texting, but all those technological means can potentially create a meeting. So just be aware of that. And I'm available to answer any kind of specific question. How you want it. So Public Records Act, back to that email account. The email, we're giving you a city issued email for use on the committee because we want you to exclusively use that email to receive information. So that if I get a Public Records Act request about the committee and they ask for all the emails of the committee members, I will know that the only emails I have to look at are the official city emails. If you start to use your personal email, or you inadvertently get a personal email because it's a friend of yours or something that's only knows your personal email, forward it to the city email. That way I know I've got the full universe of emails. If I get a Public Records Act request, and they all now say, because there's a case from the city of San Jose about 5-6 years ago, they all ask for information on your individual owned devices. Because even if it's on your personal device, the records on there are city records when they pertain to city business. So I want to be able to tell any requester that I've made an inquiry of any of you and say that all of your emails are on the city server. And so they know that they've gotten everything. And just a bit of general advice: only put in an email what you think might be printable in the newspaper or on a website. Sometimes people get a little too casual. Just be aware that if it's because it's a public record, it could potentially be requested. And I just want to make sure that you're aware that. You know, we have a retention policy, so they last for at least 2 years on the city server. But you know, you never know when you're going to get one of these requests. Next slide. I don't think this will be relevant to your group. So this is related to what you're doing, although you're going to be an advisory body moving up through the planning department. Just be aware that you know I'm kind of involved in advising when things move up the chain. I'm interested mostly in those bullet points about advising the planning commission, development agreements. Rare in San Carlos, but except for condominium subdivisions, we do updates of the zoning ordinances, and that might be a recommendation that you make at some point. And then California Environmental Quality Act, which is any changes to our general plan or specific plan that comes out of the group might end up being subject to sequel. I think we're actually undertaking that. That started. Next slide. And the last one, last but not least, the Fair Political Practices Act. This is the state regulation that's designed to avoid conflicts of interest. This is an advisory body, so that's a distinction that you're not considered public officials under the act as an advisory body. But I just want you to be aware of it so that you can, if you think there's a question about your proximity of your property or something, and the item for discussion is going to be specific to property that you own or close enough that you think it's specific about the property you own, we might want to have a conversation about whether you should recuse yourself. And it's basically under 500 feet. It's very strict, clear, and convincing evidence standard. Between 500 and 1,000 feet, it's a lesser standard, but we have to go through the analysis to determine whether or not there's a conflict of interest when you get in real property. And I can't tell you what the recommendations or discussions you're going to have, but I just want to make sure that we go through that process if there's anything that seems very specific to something within a few 500 feet. So important business property. Leased property has a different standard, so I'm not as worried about that, but we should still do the analysis if you have a long-term lease that's near something that you're focusing on. The last item, it's probably questions. Yeah. So You can reach me at, I'm a contract city attorney, so I have a law firm office in San Jose. I'm not there as much as I probably should be, but it's the commute, the combination of the commute and the ease of remote work makes it so I don't have to drive to San Jose every day. But I do get voicemails from that number, and it's 408-606-6315 if you want to call me there. It has when you leave a voicemail, I get an email with a recording of your voicemail, so it's pretty seamless. Use that technology. The other way is you can email me at my city email address at grubens@cityofsancarlos.org. And then I try to be accessible if any types of these types of questions come up and have a concern. It's better to ask. Don't be embarrassed to ask. It's better to ask, and I could say we don't have a problem, than not ask, and then we find out later that there was.
Thank you, Greg. And we'll make sure to send out that number and that email address to all the DTAC members. So in case they ever need it or have a question about, whether there may be a conflict of interest or anything at all, kind of somewhat related, we can make sure to kind of funnel that to you and get feedback to the DTAC members. And one thing that I just wanted to add is, staff is going to do our very best to remind the DTAC about, not having serial meetings. So if we're sending out some information, say we're looking at some alternative plans for the downtown, alternative plans for Laurel Street, we'll send you that information over email. We could also be providing it to you hard copy. But when you receive information over email, we're going to be reminding you, like, okay, just please receive it, review it, but the discussion about it, comments about it, we don't want to get into a situation where all of a sudden DTAC members are emailing each other about, what they think about the plan or the alternative on Laurel Street. So we really want to avoid that. Any discussions about these ideas need to happen in a public meeting, such as the one we're having right now. And we'll just make sure to put those reminders every time we send out information. I know this is a lot of information. Some of you haven't been on a city commission or board before, so we're going to help you along the way. We'll make sure that, to give you that information and friendly reminders. But if anything comes up, feel free to reach out to me or Lynette, and we'll get in touch with Greg, or if you need to reach out to Greg directly regarding your business and the role you have on DTAC, feel free. We'll send that information out in a subsequent email, the number that you gave Greg, and then also your email address. But I guess, does anybody have any questions so far? I know this is a lot. This isn't your final chance to ask the question. So if something happens later on and you think of something and you want to ask a question, of course, ask it anytime. But if there's something that you wanted to ask now, we can have a couple minutes to take care of those. So if folks want to use the raise hand icon or raise your hand physically, we'll try to make sure not to miss anybody. Maybe I can get Sarah and Lynette to help just to check the room, see if we have. It looks like Tom Davis has a hand up.
Donna also raise her hand.
Okay, maybe, I'm sorry, we'll go to Tom and then Lynette, you can call the next person. Oh, Donna has her hand raised too. So Tom and then Donna. Oh, Tom, you might need to unmute yourself. I don't know if you're on. Yeah, you're on mute, so you just need to unmute yourself, Tom.
Okay.
There you go.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So the question is, Allison and I are teamed up with the same subject. So what extent can we talk to each other about the subject?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be very cautious, but Tom, but technically, less than a majority of you can talk about something on the, that's within the subject matter of the advisory body. Technically 10 people could make a decision or could make a recommendation or could, excuse me, be a quorum and conduct a meeting. And so the four people theoretically could talk about an item without a technical violation of the Brown Act, but I'm kind of worried about the slippery slope issue. So, if you just pick one other person to bounce ideas off on each particular item, segregating them and that, okay, we're talking about, this block, or we're talking about this concept. If you just talk with one person on each one of those, you're not going to get into trouble. And so, does that make sense? You can't have what some people call as a Brown Act buddy. You can have one Brown Act buddy that does not create a violation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And then Donna.
So I had two really quick questions, and I may have missed this. The first quick question is the minutes for tonight we will be receiving. Is that correct?
Yes, we're going to be taking summary notes of the meeting, and then we will bring that to the DTAC at subsequent meetings, just kind of like how we do for City Council Planning Commission. So we'll make sure to take notes, comments that we receive, ideas that we receive, and so there'll be a record of what was stated at each meeting.
And we'll actually receive those then, you're saying, just before the next meeting, it sounds like.
Yeah, that will go in the meeting materials that are sent out to you.
Okay. The second one is around the social media. I just want to make sure for clarification's sake, if somebody's on Nextdoor and just kind of chatting away on Nextdoor about the things that pop up and that are posted, that's one thing, but it sounds like there's the whole other aspect clearly of what we do here and represent here. And so I just wanted to, once again, just kind of go over that really quickly for verification. If, any social media like that would just not be a good idea to be on at all. I don't know if that's clear what I'm asking.
Is that for me? Yeah, I think, you can be on, yeah, let's put it this way. If there's this hypothetical social media website or chat room or something of that nature, and it's talking about your committee or what you're talking about, I would not go on that. It's general social media that you happen to be on, and there happens to be somebody that brings up the subject matter. I think you're safe in that situation as long as you don't respond to it. Say, I'm on this committee and you don't know what you're talking about, or just don't engage on stuff that's on social media like that. But if it happens to happen that you're on a page, I wouldn't be alarmed about it. I would just kind of be aware that the main issue is that having more than 4 other members of the committee on that same chat or social media site.
And Mark.
Hey there, thanks. I actually had 2 questions. I don't know if tonight's meeting is recording. So will we be making those available to this group as part of the minutes, or will that be publicly available? And then I guess the second part of my question is, moving forward as a city commission, will our meetings be open to the public in the way that, for example, a Parks and Rec Commission meeting is open to the public?
I can answer those, Greg. Those are ones that I can answer. So yes, we want to make sure that because this is a city appointed committee to help us prepare the downtown specific plan, these are not broadcast live like City Council or Planning Commission meetings. So we are recording them. And the recording is available to the public. Eventually, this recording will live on the project website, and I'm going to talk about the project website a little bit later on the agenda, but that is the intent. One of the things that we are very mindful about doing is just making sure that this is a very transparent process, so that recordings will be available on the website for anybody who would like to watch. And then your second question was about public comment, and the answer to that is yes. We're going to be allowing for public comment at the end of the agenda. So if you all received a copy of the agenda, I think with the Zoom link, I think that's where it was.
It's item number 6. Item number 6 has public comment.
Yeah, so we will, but we're going to be doing those at the end, and we're specifically laying out this structure because this is a working meeting of the DTAC, and we want to make sure that we have time to, really work together with you as a committee. We are going to be having public workshops where there'll be a lot of opportunity for the public to engage and really kind of have that dialogue. But we decided that it's probably best, and we've modeled this before with other similar ad hoc committees that have been formed, is to have the public comment at the end of the meeting. So we'll do the same here.
And I might add, Mark, that if you go to the city's website under agendas, the Downtown Advisory Committee is one of the committees that are listed when you do the drop-down menu, and you can link to the agenda packet and later on you'll be able to view the video.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and if anybody has had any trouble with that link, please reach out to Lynette. She can walk you through that, but we will always be notifying that the materials are available electronically through this link that lives in the location that our City Attorney Greg just mentioned. And we'll talk about this more later on the agenda. We'll also provide an opportunity, I should say, for the materials to be, printed in hard copy format if any DTAC members would like to pick them up in that regard as well. And we figure we're probably going to need to do that because there might be quite a bit of information. Maybe you don't all want to kind of look at that on the screen, but we'll talk about that more. Okay, let's see. Are there any other hands before we move on? And we'll summarize some of these points for you. I know this was a lot to take in, but we're here to help you, not leaving you on your own on this. So I don't see any others, so maybe it's okay to go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Thank you so much, Greg. Really appreciate that. And I guess we'll be in touch with the Life of this project, and let you know.
Listen in. I'll listen in for a little while, just to educate myself about what you're doing, and then
yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, you don't have to leave, but thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the next item on our agenda, and that is to discuss the roles and responsibilities of the Downtown Advisory Committee. To touch on city email, we touched on that, but we want to just make sure to round that out. To talk about general communications, who to go, where to go for questions and communication about this process. Discuss the meeting schedule and format, and then also introduce the project website and resource library. So in terms of the roles and responsibilities of this committee, as staff discussed this with the City Council when we got the green light to go ahead and form a committee, we did talk to the council about what the roles and responsibilities of this committee would be in terms of assisting staff in preparing a downtown specific plan. So some of the, well, first off, I should mention, I think all of you are aware, because this was in the application materials, including tonight's meeting. We have 5 meetings with this committee. However, it could be that we need to add more depending upon where we're at with the project. If there's some aspect of the project that needs to be flushed out a little bit further, or maybe that we didn't get to in one of our meetings. I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that in terms of your commitment and kind of what to expect as we move forward. So right now, after this meeting, we'd have 4 more, but there could be a chance maybe we might need 1 or maybe 2 more if necessary to kind of finish up the work for this project. And we'll be talking about the meeting schedule in just a moment. But getting back to the roles and responsibilities, some of the key things that this committee will do is review information about the project and also to sort of educate yourself and learn a little bit about downtown planning and some of the key aspects of the downtown, to be mindful of or to be aware of. I mean, some of you may have more experience. I think Joaquin, for example, would be one that I would say has a lot of experience, but then I know we also have some folks on the committee that are new to the process. So just to kind of get, provide some orientation and to get, you start thinking about the qualities and the elements of a downtown, we're going to be providing you with some learning information. So one of your responsibilities would be to kind of look at that information, review it, ask questions if you have any questions about it. And we'll be giving you a lot of time to look that over before we dive into the material. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your thoughts, ideas, concerns, your general feedback is on a wide variety of different focus areas of the downtown as we think about streets, as we think about the buildings and heights and architecture, different land uses, different amenities, plazas, new parks perhaps, crossings, accessibility. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We want your feedback on all of that. We want you to help solicit participation from the community at large. We hope that ultimately everyone in San Carlos knows we're going to be working on updating a plan for the downtown. It's a really significant and key location of any city. It's the place where people come to gather, to do business, to meet friends, make new friends, to take part in, kind of like a civic engagement at its highest role. So we want your help in letting your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, your business associates that spend time here in San Carlos, work in San Carlos, live in San Carlos, know that they're about this plan. Help them figure out, where to go, that we have a website, when we're going to be doing an online survey. So part of your role is to really help us get the message out, and, feel free to share as much as possible. As some of you mentioned, you're here based upon a specific interest or focus area that you want to bring to the table. You're an advocate for a certain group, or you want to, maybe it's mobility, maybe it's special needs, maybe it's, business owners, retail business owners, etc. So we want to hear, those, your thoughts come out on the issues that you represent. And we also want you to help guide and shape the outcomes of this process through consensus building. We won't be taking an official roll call vote. It won't be anything formal like that. But at best, we're wanting to work with you through some consensus building process. And we have our consultant team and civic engagement experts and meeting facilitators to kind of help us through that process. So ultimately, that is what we see as the role of this committee. And I'm going to get through a couple more slides and then I'll open it up for questions. So in terms of just general, how we communicate, how we're going to share information back and forth with you. You all are going to be receiving, if you haven't already, an official City of San Carlos email address. This is something that you'll have to get used to using and checking, and we can make sure that folks in the city's IT department help you navigate that, and so that it's really easy for you to just check in on your city email on an occasional basis. As our city attorney mentioned, all of the correspondence and communication about this project need to come through city email. If you start to use your personal email address and we get a public records request, you probably don't want us sifting through your personal email. So this is one of the reasons why you're going to be getting an official city email account. So please be mindful to check that. We do have your phone number, so if we don't hear from you for whatever reason or think that you may need a reminder, we will call you. But it's just one of the new habits that you're going to need to start to develop. If you have general questions, feel free to send those to advanceplanning@thecityofsancarlos.org. That goes to our full team here. And this is a way that we manage a lot of questions that we get throughout the community. So if somebody has a general question and they want to ask our team, one of our team members will get back to you. However, if there's something personal, or maybe you're going to be absent or something comes up and you really need to reach me directly, feel free to reach me at my email address, which is provided here on the screen. Or if it's a different nature and there's something specific you want to ask Lynette, her email is provided as well. And I would say use these for things that are maybe more personal in nature, where you wouldn't want maybe a whole team of people on the city side to get. But if it's just something general and you need some information or any kind of question regarding the timing, materials, when am I going to receive this, or what was the date for that, just feel free to use advanced planning. I know this is a lot. We'll send out an email with all this information as well. In terms of the DTAC meetings going forward, we're going to endeavor to schedule those 1 month in advance. While we could use a doodle poll, it gets a little bit challenging, the larger number of people that are on there. And if we have to keep resetting the doodle poll to get the maximum amount of attendance, we could end up in a situation where we're kind of not meeting deadlines and schedules. But we certainly want to give all of you an opportunity to adjust your schedule if you need to, so you can make the time to come to the DTAC meetings. If you have any concerns about that, feel free to just email me. You know, we definitely want to work with all of you. The best outcome is where everyone is participating at every meeting. We don't want to set something up where a lot of you are going to be absent. So, we'll talk about this, but just generally going forward, it's going to be at least 1 month in advance of the next meeting and then future meetings. And mostly all of these meetings are going to be in the evening, just like we're having now. The meeting format is going to go forward via Zoom. However, as the project evolves, there could be opportunities, and it may make more sense or be easier to just kind of have a meeting in person. We're going to kind of navigate that as the project evolves. The next thing I wanted to inform the committee about is that we have an official project website for this effort, San Carlos downtownplan.com. Here is where, for example, the video recording will be hosted on. It's general information to the public about the project, how to get involved, what community meetings are coming up. It'll have meeting summaries from the DTAC, materials from the DTAC. We're very transparent, and the video recording. We'll have resources available and general contact information. So one of the things that we decided we wanted to do for this project is to provide learning materials and information that talk about some of the best practices with downtown plans, to kind of give us kind of this comprehensive perspective on some of the ideas that we may want to consider for our downtown. Of course, our consultant team, we have a great consultant team on board. They're going to be helping us with this a lot. But just to prepare the DTAC so that all of you can feel fully informed and be ready to engage in this conversation and have some sort of background, we're going to be populating this particular page of the project website. And when we put more information on it, we will definitely let you know. You'll be the first to know, and we'll let you know that, we just found another resource, or there's this really great TED Talk you might find interesting. This is going to be evolving over time, and most definitely it's going to be evolving in the near future, because we want to get this stuff up on the website so you can start to take a look at it, because we don't anticipate our next DTAC meeting maybe until August, but Jamie will help me confirm that. So on the project website, as is shown here on the screen, you want to just go ahead and click on the resources tab. And if you click there, it takes you to this page. And we have a couple of PDFs available here right now. And of course, if anybody wants this information printed out, please do let us know. We're here to kind of make things easy for you. So if it works better for you to sort of get this information printed out to take away and keep with you and underline and mark up, that's totally fine. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pause, because this is my last slide for this item, to see if there's any questions on the information that I just shared. So again, if you want to use your raised hand or just kind of raise your hand, I'm going to go around and check to see if anybody has any questions on this part. Okay, I don't see any. Okay, so let's go ahead and move right along. The next item on our agenda this evening is to discuss the project. We are going to give you an introduction to the project itself, what the general timeline is, and also what is a specific plan. And Jamie Williams is going to help us with that this evening. So just to kind of go ahead and get us started, I wanted to share with the DTAC, a little bit kind of stepping back about where this project actually began. And it really began with our city council here at the city, probably more than a year ago already, where they meet every year to talk about their strategic goals for the city for the upcoming years. And just a little over a year ago, they really started to talk about this idea of developing a plan for the downtown. And the overall goal of the strategic objective of the city is to work with the residents, work with property owners, business owners, all of our committees and commissions, get the chamber involved, and all other interested members of our community to create a plan. We want to ensure that we understand what the needs of the community are today and going into the future. So what do we need to consider in our downtown? We know that, especially with the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. Our downtown looks different than it did 3 years ago. So we want to address kind of a list of different things that you see here on the screen, from a range of things like, land uses, what the appropriate mix of land uses that we should have in our downtown. And land uses is like, well, what's happening inside these buildings? What types of uses do we allow? What types of uses, should really, go somewhere else and maybe not be in the downtown? We want to talk about urban design and what we refer to as the public realm. This is the space between buildings, what that should look like, how it should feel, the safety, the accessibility, traffic, circulation, walking, biking, general accessibility. We want to talk about outdoor dining, from everything to parklets and plazas, new plaza opportunities. And also talk about implementation, what it's really going to take to get all of this completed. If we have, a new ideas for how the streets should be designed, how wide the sidewalks are, what kind of street furniture, street trees we should have. We need to have an implementation and funding mechanism built into the plan. So this is kind of like the big picture of the overall kind of genesis of this project. I thought it would be really important to kind of share all of that with you as well, that this is really being directed by our city council. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Jamie Williams, who's going to talk about, well, if we're creating a specific plan, what is a specific plan? So Jamie.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm excited to be joining you on this journey to really develop a specific path for the downtown. It's important to realize what a specific plan is, because you're going to be providing on this input, and what does it even mean? So a specific plan is a tool, it's a land use tool that's specific to the state of California. It's really cool. It basically allows us to create almost like a mini zoning code and a vision for a particular area of a city. But there's some certain criteria that go along with it. The first criteria is that every city in California has a general plan, and that's a long-term policy document that establishes what the future looks like for a community. And a specific plan must adhere to the goals and policies within that general plan. So we have a little bit of an umbrella that guides us. If we want to push our way out of that, we need to do a general plan amendment. It's a bit of a detail, but it's a possibility. But generally, we try to comply with the goals and objectives of the general plan. The city is governed by a general plan, which is the larger vision, and then the zoning code, which talks about the specific regulations on a particular piece of property. There will be portions of a property that will continue to be guided by the zoning code, but the specific plan allows us to put an additional level of detail for this area. And allows us not only to focus on private property, but the public realm as well. So we'll be delving into things like the street closure and streetscape furnishings, as Lisa mentioned, things that are making a place a great place to visit, a great place to live, and a great place to be. The housing element, I don't know if you're all familiar, but your community has just been going through an update of the housing element. That's a particular element of the general plan, and that'll help guide us as well. That determines some additional housing needs for the community at large and may specify where we want to dig in and explore housing within the downtown area. So it all comes together in a really nice and unique framework that that is called the specific plan. Lisa?
Next slide.
So again, the details, Lisa mentioned many of these, but the details of the specific plan are to define specific districts and uses and development standards within that, to talk about mobility and parking and urban design. One of the criteria, a specific plan is guided by the governmental code. So the state has certain criteria. So we need to take a deep dive into the infrastructure, make sure what we're planning is feasible. And it also, and I didn't mention on this slide, but it has an environmental component. And so the decisions and the policies and the strategies within the specific plan are then analyzed through what's called the CEQA process, or the California Environmental Review process, so that as development comes in the future, the path has already been laid on what can and cannot happen. It helps to expedite it. It helps to expedite future development. However, it provides really strong direction on what that development looks like, feels like, how high it is, and the like. It also is not a specific project for a particular area. It's an overarching, structured envelope, if you will, of what can and can't happen within the downtown area. And the end result is an implementation action plan that says, here's what the future could hold. Here are the departments, here are the groups that are responsible for that. So that you kind of have a roadmap when we end with what's going to happen. Your role, and Lisa mentioned a bit of this, but I'm excited because we're going to engage you along the way. So we're going to be using your input to help develop some concepts. We're going to then share those concepts back with you and get your feedback and responses. And then we'll be going through and getting a preferred concept. So, don't stress out. This is fun. We're going to have a good time. It's like we are working together to develop a plan for the future. It's a 20-year plan, and it will look at all the different elements of downtown that make it just that great place that you want to visit and live and be part of.
Thank you, Jamie. Let me see. Oh, good. I'm not on mute. I wanted to make sure. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and take the mic and sort of wrap up the remaining components on the project. So moving on to the next slide, we want to know, and we want to, well, you want to know, and we want to share, what area are we looking at for this project? Some of you may already be familiar with this. Maybe you dove in a little bit on the project on the city's website before we actually established the new project website. But the specific plan area, all of these new policies and new development standards that we're going to be creating as part of this plan, where will they, what properties or how will these be placed in the city? So as you can see here on this slide, our boundaries for the project extend all the way in the north. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see Holly Street here, all the way from the north at Holly, all the way down to Greenwood Avenue, just past Britain. And then moving to the east, we have El Camino Real as the eastern boundary, and then Walnut Street as the boundary in the west, but it kind of jogs in and does not include the single family residences that are just behind I guess, Laurel Street over here. This is Laurel Street. And then over here is Walnut Street. I think some of you are familiar with that sort of jog that goes behind Bianchini's, wraps around some of the backs of the businesses on Laurel Street, and then just, you know, continues to capture more of that mixed use kind of commercial area in the downtown. In addition to what's shown within this black lined boundary here, we're also going to be looking at the streetscape as it extends just at Wheeler Plaza on Walnut Street, extends from Walnut Street all the way west to Chestnut Street, and then wrapping around the Civic Center, coming east along Cherry Street. So this green dotted line represents other areas that we will look at, but only in the context of the streetscape, what's happening on the streets. We're not going to be changing, you know, building heights or the uses for the properties that are located here. We'll be taking a look at that, you know, if there's any refinements, what needs to be made for land uses and building heights, those sorts of regulatory standards in the main part of the downtown area. But we do have a streetscape component that wraps around City Hall and the Civic Center that I did want to mention. This map here is on the project website, so if you kind of wanted to take another look at that, you can find it on the project website. Moving on, you recognize Jamie here in this slide, but I wanted to let the committee know of all of the assistance and the specialties that we have at our disposal to work with on this project. So as I mentioned before, Jamie is leading the charge for RRM. RRM Design Group is the firm assisting the city with this effort. But in addition to Jamie, we have at our disposal additional professional planning staff on their team, which includes their in-house urban designers. They have a streetscape specialist, civil engineers, and architects on their team. So you may be meeting these folks that you see here on the screen as the project evolves. In addition to that, RRM has several sub-consultants that are going to assist us with other key aspects that we need to consider as we create this plan. And that would include consultants from a firm called W-Trans. They specialize in transportation. So when we get into preparing, you know, the environmental document and need to take a look at transportation, we have consultants, professional consultants on board to assist the city with that. We have consultants working for an economic group to help us look at the project component feasibilities. We have someone specializing in historic preservation. And then we also have a firm that is going to be carrying out the environmental review under CEQA. And you all will get familiar with the acronym CEQA, C-E-Q-A. It stands for the California Environmental Quality Act. So once we have our idea of what the plan is going to be, we call it the project description. So once the final plan is selected, we know what that project description is and includes, and then we can evaluate it under the California Environmental Quality Act. This is a required and necessary component when preparing a specific plan. So kind of
Lisa, but before you move on, Mark Maxwell had a question regarding the boundaries or the boundary slide. Before, are you taking questions now or towards the end?
I guess since it came up, we can take it, but we can also do questions at the end. Let's see, Mark, I can go back to the slide real quick and address your question now. Why isn't mine? Hold on a second. For some reason, yeah, there we go. All right.
Yeah, my question was just out of curiosity, how did we arrive at Greenwood as the end versus extending another block to Howard? There are businesses, you know, along there. Is it that the parklets more or less end there? Although there are some parklets all the way down, we could have, you know, also perhaps extended it all the way to St. Francis or even to Eaton.
Very good question. Originally, when staff started thinking about creating a plan for the downtown, we recognized that our downtown is traditionally, like the way most people see it, the 600, 700, and 800 blocks of Laurel Street. You know, that's kind of like the downtown core. But but in terms of kind of thinking about how we would address Laurel Street, recognizing that there's, a significant business environment as we go further south along Laurel Street all the way to Eden Avenue. We recognize that we could in fact include all of that area all the way to Eden, but we are trying to accomplish, I could say, a lot of different components, address a lot of different aspects of the downtown area within a target of 2 years. The larger we've made this plan, the longer it would take to complete it. So staff recommended to the council that we do this in 2 phases. The first phase being the core of downtown, a little bit north and a little bit south of it. And the next phase could be focusing on the South Laurel area all the way to Eden Avenue. We originally had the boundaries for this first phase from Hawley to Britain. And when we presented it to the city council, they wanted us to move it a little bit further south to Greenwood Avenue. So that's how we arrived at the southern boundary of Greenwood Avenue for the project boundary.
So should I address that question to council members as to why just to Greenwood? Why not to Howard?
Staff can investigate that a little bit further. And if Al Sabay is here, I don't know, Al, if you might have any additional information. That
it's commercial on both sides? Maybe?
Excuse me?
I was just hypothesizing that it's commercial. That block is commercial on both sides, whereas perhaps the next block is residential on one side. Or sorry, Al, didn't mean to speak for you.
No, that's okay. If I could add to that. So the council did look at the whole area of Laurel, all the way from, let's say, the edge of town all the way down to Eden. Yeah. And what we determined is that it's just too big to do at one time. And so I think what the council wants to do is a phase 2 downtown specific plan after this one is done. So I think that's how the city will approach it, Mark.
Right, that's what Lisa just said. I was just curious. She said that the original recommendation was to have phase 1 stop at Britain, which is obviously a main artery, and you know, there's a lot of, you can make many arguments for that, but that city council wanted to extend it 1 more block. I was just curious.
Yeah. And I just think it was the type of businesses between Britain and Greenwood. As you walk down the street, you know, I think that they were consistent with, you know, the rest of the block up to Britain. I think it was as simple as that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you, Al. Yes, thank you. And thank you to Judy for letting me know there was a question in the chat. Okay, so going back to the slide here, I wanted to share with the committee, it's really important to kind of, as you're starting to embark on this process with city staff and our consultant team, to kind of see the big picture in terms of where this is going. So this is a copy of a condensed scope of work that we have with our consultant team to get us to a specific plan. So we began with the project commencement. We kicked off the project. We had a site tour with our consultants. So just so you all know, the consultant team and their sub-consultants actually walked the downtown area with us a couple months back. And so as a means to get really familiar, to kind of get the feel for what it's like, feel the traffic, see the conditions, what people are doing on the sidewalks and eating outside. So they had an up close and personal experience kind of getting that done. So we had our kickoff meeting, we did the site tour. One of our first tasks was to create a downtown advisory committee. And so congratulations to all of us. We got that done. And it takes some time to do and get the, fill out the applications, do the interviews, put the committee together and schedule the meetings and get all of us here kind of up and running. So congratulations to us all. We got that done. We're also right now in a phase of gathering information. There's a lot of key information, actually a ton of information that we need to give to our consultant team about our cities, about our rules, regulations, policies, you know, what are our streetscape standards. So we've been working on that with RRM Design, Jamie and her team. We're also putting together more of the fine-tuning components on getting the community involved. Of course, putting together the DTAC was one of the components of developing a community engagement strategy, but we have a lot more to do. So we're kind of fine-tuning that. After this first initial phase, project commencement, we move to existing conditions and initial outreach. So we will be getting an existing conditions report that we will be sharing with all of you. It's kind of like a really good background or foundational document that you can use and refer to as we consider ideas and suggestions for how the downtown can be modified, what kind of interventions are really feasible. So that existing conditions report is going to help us out along the way. So we're going to be getting that done. And then once we finish that, we are going to be hearing from the community, from the DTAC, about concept plan alternatives. And what this means is that our consultant team, is going to be providing us with 2 conceptual ideas on what's possible for the downtown based upon the input that we receive, and also based upon some economic studies. As we share those conceptual plans with the DTAC and the larger community, we'll be able to get a more refined conceptual plan idea in place, and ultimately wind up with a preferred concept plan. So we'll start with a couple of plans, and those will evolve into what will be the preferred concept. And then once we have the preferred concept plan, all of those ideas and interventions and modifications in place, we will be preparing a detailed infrastructure development and services plan. And so this kind of gets back to what Jamie was saying a moment ago, really wanting to make sure that what we propose is feasible, how much is going to cost, what that's going to look like, what are the phases by which it can be completed. Essentially, it's an implementation plan. And once we have that in place, we'll be ready to kind of draft the actual policy document, this specific plan document that will include all of the goals, the rationale, the intent, the action items for actually, making this conceptual plan a reality. All this specific plan document does need to undergo environmental review, like we mentioned a few slides back. And then eventually, after the environmental review is done, and we provide the community with an opportunity to comment on the environmental document and discuss it. So you'll see a lot of what we do. There's always a lot of procedures and processes that are built into California planning law that require that once we release a document, it needs to be available for a certain amount of time to the public to get comments, and we respond to those comments, and then we take it forward into hearings with the Planning Commission and also the City Council. Along the way, we will be stopping by other city commissions, such as the Economic Development and Advisory Commission. We will also be stopping by the Parks and Recreation and Culture Commission as an example. So all of the city boards and commissions will be providing input on the process as well as the plan gets further developed. So just to kind of leave you with a little bit of in terms of the overall objectives or goals for the plan, like what is it that we're ultimately trying to achieve? So we came up with sort of 4 big themes for the project, and those include placemaking, mobility, land use, and economics. So on this slide here, we have placemaking. So when we talk about placemaking, what we're generally talking about is the public realm and looking at public life that naturally wants to occur downtown and creating great public spaces that support a livable environment for everyone to enjoy. And then when we talk about mobility, the focus will be on creating a safe, enjoyable, functional, and seamless streetscape that provides access to places that people want to go to, as well as to stop by, to pause, to enjoy along the way. So we're going to be looking at making sure that there's enough room for pedestrians, as well as meeting other needs that want to occur within the public right-of-way on key streets throughout the project area. And when we talk about land use, This is generally like how we establish a sense of place and identity. A lot of this is dependent upon what occurs in a particular location. You know, what kinds of uses are there? Are there restaurants? Is there retail? What kind of shops and stores that kind of start to create the character of a particular place? So we're going to be looking to confirm what the appropriate ground floor business is, what types of uses we want. And we have a really good zoning ordinance in place right now. So it's just really confirming that what we have on the books now is something that we want to continue and move forward with. And then also contemplate what might be missing, and then how to make space for that in our rules and regulations for that to occur into the future. We're really looking at, you know, how to create an environment that is really inviting, and it, is inviting and enticing, and that brings people to the downtown area. So in order to, establish what we call that sense of place, we're going to be paying close attention to land uses and the design details as well, in terms of, what the shop fronts look like. And then also the spaces between the buildings that really foster these intimate connections and the community that we have. And then lastly, under economics, we're going to be doing a market study. And this is to analyze what's possible to achieve in the downtown. And then through community input, we will want to understand what is needed in the downtown in order for the downtown to thrive. And then through preparation of a financial assumptions and projections, we're going to be looking to understand what items are most feasible in the plan and how those can be realized. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to be developing an implement strategy to assist us in determining how to make it all happen. And then moving on to kind of like the big picture, I talked about the 5 phases. So these are the phases sort of broken down into some time frames that we can, so we can kind of have a general idea of what's going to be happening when. So let's start with this first column. This is called phase 1. We're just at the very beginning phase of this project. It is now officially summer. Summer solstice was yesterday. So we're going to be working this summer on having our first community workshop, as you can see here in this column. We're having our first meeting with the DTAC. We're also going to be looking at having some community focus group meetings, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So really right now we're just in this general first phase of project initiation. By the time we get to fall, we're going to be having these conceptual plans, alternatives developed, and be taking those forward once again, to a DTAC meeting. Not once again, but for the first time to a DTAC meeting, and then bringing those also to the larger, broader community in a community workshop. We're also going to be having a Planning Commission study session and City Council study session to share with the Planning Commission and City Council what we heard. We want to let them know what's happening along the way, what the community is saying, some of the ideas and concepts that are coming forward. And we want to show them what the concept plan alternatives are, kind of where we're landing and how this is taking shape, and get some general direction from these 2 primary decision-making bodies. By the time we get to early 2023, we're going to be having our preferred concept plan prepared. So we're going to be getting a lot of work done from now until early 2023 in terms of deciding what the preferred plan looks like. We'll be continuing with another DTAC meeting, another community workshop, and again, sharing with the City Council and Planning Commission what that preferred concept plan looks like, where we're headed, and getting some final direction from them. Once we have the preferred concept plan in place, we'll be moving into phase 4, which is going to be occurring this time next year, from spring until fall 2023. We want to be sharing this with the community. We're going to be coming up with ideas to have a really large community-wide open house to get more, to get some comments back on that specific plan. We'll be meeting again with this committee, and then again having study sessions with the City Council. So as you can start to see, there's going to be many avenues and opportunities for public input. Once we get to the year 2024, we're going to be entering into our last phase of project completion. which is going to include the environmental review, getting that CEQA document, the California Environmental Quality Act environmental analyses document, completed and out for public review, and then taking everything forward into what we call public hearings with the Planning Commission for a formal recommendation, and then to City Council for final adoption. So that is the big picture. This slide here that you see right now on the screen is available on the project website. This is my last slide for this particular item. So maybe I'll pause and see if there's any questions at this time. Just take a look to make my view a little bit larger. I see Tom, you have a question? Oh, you're on mute, Tom.
Down here. All right. The question is, will we continue to Zoom, or will we actually come together and enjoy the bigger meeting concept?
The DTAC or
our group and studies that we do. What are we going to invite the public to come, or does everyone have to deal with Zoom?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that's something that we're going to consider as we move forward. For the DTAC meetings right now, we are going to be meeting via Zoom, but as the project unfolds, it may be necessary to meet and more convenient and easier to meet in public with the DTAC. So we would have, to convene probably in the city library or some location to do that. And just so that everyone is aware, all meetings of the DTAC are public. Anyone from the public is invited to attend. However, just to bear in mind, we are specifically targeting the larger and broader public audience for our community-wide workshops, where we will be doing a lot of public outreach on all of our social media, for postcards and informations at farmers markets and other city events to really spread the word. And this will be for an online survey that we want feedback on, or feedback from the broader audience. But because this committee is an official ad hoc committee of the City Council of the city, we do need to make these meetings public, and the public is indeed invited to attend this meeting via Zoom and participate virtually, just like we're all doing tonight. And if we decide to have DTAC meetings in public, they will be invited to attend in public as well.
Okay.
I see Meredith has a hand.
Yeah, Monette.
I'm sorry, Monette. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I have two questions based on more of the outline. So since El Camino is a state highway, are we bound just to the businesses, or does that incorporate any changes? I mean, obviously to the actual road or parking on that street.
That's something that we are going to be definitely working with. We have already reached out to the key staff and identify who those are. Some of you may be aware of the Grand Boulevard Initiative. So this is initiative amongst all the cities that have El Camino Real running through them, to kind of create to transform El Camino Real into a Grand Boulevard, a tree-lined, complete streets, very pedestrian friendly. It's a major bus thoroughfare. El Camino Real is really kind of tasked with accomplishing a lot. There's a lot of grand ideas for it. So we do have, and we will be talking with staff at Caltrans as we develop this plan. We have streetscape specialists on the consultant side that'll probably do a lot of coordinating with the Caltrans staff to see what's possible and what's feasible. So we'll probably have some parameters in place before we really start talking about El Camino Real, like before we open it up too wide, and start getting really, putting forward some really interesting ideas. We want to have a reality check on what's possible. So yes, we can definitely work with Caltrans to kind of make some, interventions along El Camino Real that, enhance it and beautify it, the segment that we have in our city.
Okay, my second question is, when Wheeler Plaza was first built, if I recall from all the meetings, the area that's now that little parking lot next to what used to be Foodville, was supposed to be a plaza and kind of thing, and yet that has never materialized. Was that just an idea, but not something that was ever part of the actual Wheeler Plaza project?
Yeah, that particular area, I'm going to go ahead and speak, and then if Al needs to add anything to it, I invite Al to do so. But that particular area was not part of Wheeler Plaza per se, the site programming, but it was absolutely considered by the city to be an opportunity for, an open space, a plaza. The city has done some preliminary evaluation and investigation of the possibilities, but now that we are embarking on a downtown specific plan, we can really pick that piece up as part of this plan. So we get to kind of work on that together. And so all of the work that we have completed on that particular space in the past, we can start from there. We have a really good starting place, and then we can work with this committee and the broader public to kind of fine tune and refine, what we really want to see there. So we get to talk about that during this plan.
So it's still a possibility. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And then my teammates, if they can help me out here, I'm kind of scrolling through, just checking to see if we have any other hands up at this time. Okay. I'm not seeing any others. If something comes up, again, you'll know how to reach us. Let's go ahead and move on. We're almost to the finish of our meeting. I just want to make sure we finish on time. The next thing that I wanted to just share, and I think we kind of already talked about this, is civic engagement. And I mentioned before that we are really taking a multi-pronged approach to civic engagement. I mentioned the community workshops already. We're going to be preparing online surveys, and this is surveys that the DTAC will also be invited to partake in. We also want to meet with certain focus groups and stakeholders in the community. There's, while we have really good representation here on, like some of the downtown merchants, the downtown property owners who lives in the downtown and around the downtown, and folks that represent certain groups, we want to make sure that we reach out to other folks as well. So we'll probably be having meetings with, more of the downtown, business owners and operators to hear more from them. We really want to make sure that we identify very clearly who the key stakeholders are within the project boundaries, and give them an opportunity to meet with the consultant team, especially at the beginning when we're starting to we want to know, what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that we need to pay attention to. It's really important that one of the first places we start is with some of the stakeholders, as they are, on their site, most of the time they know it very well. I'm sure we all know the downtown at different degrees, but we want to make sure to kind of reach out to the stakeholder groups. So there'll be a lot more to come on the civic engagement piece, and we will be sure to share that with you, because again, this is something that you can share with your neighbors, any particular groups that you're part of here with the city. The more that people are aware of what's happening and when and how can they get involved, is how we're going to be able to create a good plan for the entire city. So moving on to our almost last item, and this is where we're going to want to get your participation kind of typing in the chat. As I mentioned before, we really want to provide all of you with an opportunity to meet each other in person and kind of have this like meet and greet social event take place. One of the ideas that staff has is to create an ice cream social. We can make sure to have ice cream that is dairy-free as well to meet all of anybody's dietary restrictions. But we thought this would be a good opportunity for all of us to meet you in person and to meet each other, have some really nice icebreaker questions, and really just kind of to have a fun event where we can get to know each other a little bit better. And we want to offer this to you and invite you to this event. So what we're trying to determine is like what's going to work best for everybody. Some of you are back in your offices. Some of you might be working here from home. Some of you work here already. So we're wondering what times would work best for you. This would be something that we would plan for during the week, probably in the middle of the week, maybe even on a Wednesday, just like today. And we can either do it during the middle of the day, say at lunchtime at noon, or we can do it after work. So what we're looking to hear from you all, and if you could please write this down in the chat, is let us know whether something like midday around noon sounds good, or something after work, like say around 5:30. And then once we get a sense of what works best for most, we're going to go ahead and go with that. And as soon as we figure out what date, this wouldn't happen right away. I'm thinking this would happen sometime in the month of July. So maybe somewhere around the middle of July, we could look at doing. So again, if you can just put right there in the chat, if something during the day at noon works best for you, just put noon. If it's after work, just please put after work. And again, we might be looking at something like 5:30. I know that would ruin your dinner, but maybe you can have ice cream for dinner instead. So we'll just kind of see where this lands. And our staff will be taking this down. So once we get most folks to respond, we'll kind of go from there. So thank you all for taking a minute to type that in the chat. And then if Sarah or Lynette can let me know when we got most of the responses.
I think I sent mine to the wrong.
Has everyone replied? So Judy or Sarah, do you know how I can see the total number on here?
We're just monitoring the chat, and so we're just seeing the names.
Oh,
there's not a total number. But it looks like most people.
We have 17 DTAC members here tonight. So I can count.
Looks like most folks are saying after work or.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like after work is going to work best. Okay, so more details on that to come. If you have a particular flavor you just have to have, let us know. We'll try to accommodate and make everyone happy. All right, well, we're just here almost at the end. And as I mentioned before, we do have a public comment period on our agenda. There may be someone here that is not on the DTAC, but is, sorry, I'm just trying to advance to my next slide. We may have some folks from the community here tonight that may want to speak. Here we go. Comments from the public. So this is general public comment period. If anyone here that is at this meeting that is not on the DTAC would like to make a public comment on anything that we discussed here on this agenda tonight, now would be the time to speak. On the screen here is the Zoom link and also the dial-in number. And if you're using the dial-in number, you can enter in the meeting ID. And once you're in, you can virtually raise your hand by clicking on the raised hand icon. And if joining by phone, you can press *9 and then *6 to unmute when called upon. So I'm going to ask Sarah or Lynette to let us know if there's anybody from the public that maybe wants to make a public comment.
There is no one from the public in Zoom.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Thank you, Lynette. We will go ahead and then move on to the next slide. So just to wrap up this meeting, and I'm really impressed because we had a lot to cover and it's 5 minutes to 8. So I think we did really good on time And I just want to thank all of you for hanging in there. And we promise that the meetings going forward are going to be much more interactive and exciting. We get to dive into the material. But as the beginning of all things, it's kind of necessary to do a basic introduction and administrative oriented type meeting. So thank you all for being here tonight to join us this evening. So just to wrap up, you will be hearing from staff once we get all of your city email accounts established. And we're going to be sending you information about new resources that are up on the city website. We'll send you information about when our social meet and greet ice cream social is going to take place. And the other piece of information that we want to share with you is that we're going to be creating binders for all meeting materials that you can keep with you. There's going to be a lot of materials that you're going to be looking at over the next 1.5 years. So we're going to be creating a binder for you and starting to insert information into that binder, including the agendas and meeting materials that you can look at. So there's going to be more to come on that. But just wanted to let you know that we're going to be helping you keep everything organized and in a very convenient way to kind of store your notes and the things that you want to bring up and talk about as we move forward. So I think that's it. Unless Jamie or Al wanted to share anything else, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen since we're almost to the end of this meeting. Jamie or Al, did you have anything you wanted to add, or we're pretty much good for this evening?
All good here. Nothing to add.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and officially end the meeting. And we look forward to meeting you in person and working with you on this project. Thank you so much. And I look very much forward to it. So everyone, have a good evening.
Night.
Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.